What would you do to keep your child out of prison? For Victoria Gotti, daughter of the most infamous mob boss in American history, the answer was breathtaking. She wrote a letter to a federal judge, telling him her son is literally giving her the gift of life, his own kidney. But the federal government isn't buying it. And today, we break down everything: the $1.1 million COVID fraud, the Gotti family legacy, and the question everyone is asking: should a kidney donation keep a fraudster out of prison? To understand this story, you need to understand the name, Gotti. John Gotti, the self-styled Teflon Don, was the boss of the Gambino crime family, one of the most powerful organized crime figures in U.S. history. He was flashy, feared, and eventually convicted in 1992, dying in prison in 2002. His daughter, Victoria Gotti, grew up in that shadow. She became a best-selling thriller author, a tabloid fixture, and eventually a reality TV star, with her show Growing Up Gotti, which aired in 2004 on A&E and made her three sons minor celebrities. One of those sons, Carmine Agnello Jr., now 39, is at the center of today's story. Carmine is the son of Victoria and her ex-husband Carmine Agnello Sr., himself a reputed Gambino capo, whom Victoria divorced in 2003. In September 2024, Carmine Agnello Jr. pleaded guilty to COVID-19 relief fraud. Here's what prosecutors say he did. Carmine co-owned a business called Crown Auto Parts with his brothers. He fraudulently applied for 3 COVID relief loans, lying about the size of his payroll, and falsely claiming he had no prior criminal record. The total fraud? $1.1 million. Of that money, $420,000 was funneled into a cryptocurrency investment, not into his business, not into his workers' pockets, into crypto. Federal prosecutors are now asking Judge Nusrat Chaudhry to sentence him to 33 to 41 months in federal prison, plus $1.25 million in restitution. His defense attorney, Stephen Metcalf, is asking for something very different: probation. And his reason? That's where this story gets personal. Victoria Gotti recently received a devastating diagnosis: chronic kidney disease. She needs a transplant, and Carmine, her son, has agreed to be her kidney donor. In a lengthy emotional letter submitted to the judge, Victoria called Carmine her miracle child. She described him as kind and generous to a fault, and told the judge he is giving her the gift of life. She also questioned whether Carmine even knew he was committing fraud, claiming someone else filled out the loan applications, and that her son would never do anything he knew was wrong. She also took a moment to recount her own life, writing 6 New York Times best-selling thrillers while bedridden, and admitting that her ex-husband, Carmine Sr., once taught their sons to gamble, which she says was the beginning of the end of their marriage. His defense attorney backed up the medical argument, warning the judge that if Carmine goes to prison, his post-transplant medical care inside the Bureau of Prisons would be deeply inadequate and potentially life-threatening. Federal prosecutors are not moved. Assistant U.S. Attorney Charles Kelly argued in his sentencing submission that being a kidney donor does not constitute extraordinary family circumstances and does not justify a below-guidelines sentence. He further argued that the federal prison system is fully capable of handling Carmine's medical needs after a transplant. This is a key legal question. Courts have occasionally granted leniency for medical or family hardship, but prosecutors argue that setting this precedent could open the door for anyone facing prison to claim a family medical need. The judge must now decide: is a kidney transplant, a life-saving act for a mother, enough to tip the scales of justice? Let's zoom out. This case sits at the intersection of 3 things that make it irresistible to follow. First, the Gotti name. In America, that name carries decades of tabloid weight, true crime fascination, and pop culture mythology. Second, COVID fraud. The government made prosecuting pandemic relief fraud a major priority, and Carmine is one of thousands charged. His case is a reminder that the consequences are still playing out years later. Third, the human angle. A mother with kidney disease. A son who says he'll donate. These are not props. They are real people navigating an impossible situation inside a courtroom. The legal system is rarely sentimental, but judges are human. And this judge, Judge Chowdhury, faces one of the more unusual sentencing decisions in recent memory. Carmine Agnello Jr. is scheduled to be sentenced at Long Island Federal Court. The outcome of that hearing will determine not just his fate, but potentially his mother's life. What do you think? Should a kidney donation factor into a federal sentence? Or is the law, regardless of family circumstance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new here, subscribe. We cover stories like this every day, where crime, family, and the justice system collide in ways nobody expects.